What kind of a world do we want to live in? This podcast opens the difficult and uncomfortable conversations about crime, addiction, poverty, and more. If we want a healthier community, these messy conversations need to happen. This is Dangerous Ideas for Social Change. Welcome to another edition of Dangerous Ideas for Social Change. And so we've been going kind of along a theme around violence, and so we've talked with people that have sort of experience, and we talked with Devon Clunas, talked a little bit about policing and crime and that kind of thing, and so I wanted to just have like a conversation, like just a relaxed conversation, and so we're fortunate today to have Terry Melquist here. I've known Terry since you were like a little kid.
Oh man, yep.
How old were you when you first got involved with us here?
Probably about 8 or 9, I believe.
8 or 9. And
Yeah.
can we ask how old you are now?
I am 29.
So for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow. So yeah, Terry has been solid, steady. Known him since he was a little guy, and now on staff. Tell us a little about the role you're in here on staff.
Yeah, so I'm a community minister, but I originally started out with Step Up Construction with Tom Cameron, but I transitioned into community ministry.
Okay, and so what does that entail for our listeners?
That the job description looks like a lot of things, really. It's pretty much going out into the community here in the North End,
Mhm.
visiting, and just some people are struggling with addiction or with gangs or just everyday life with trying to get IDs and stuff like that. We try to help with rides, hampers sometimes, and even pastoral needs, teaching about the Bible and doing Bible studies with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it's kind of an amazing story, because one of the reasons, when I think about violence in our community, I remember one incident in particular where we were very worried about you. You were the victim of violence, and something involving a machete at your home. Or I don't know do you remember that incident where you were sleeping and somebody tried to kind of get you with a machete? Does that come to mind?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I was actually stabbed, unfortunately, in my back, right here on the right side, and definitely was unfortunate and painful. And I don't know if I was sleeping. I believe I was walking on the street when that happened, unfortunately. Yeah.
So I just remember, kind of as a whole team, you would have been, how old would you have been? 14-ish?
15, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just remember us, because we can talk about kind of the effects of violence from a distance, but then when it gets personal, it everybody was just really scared for you, and it was unprovoked. It was something that just happened. And we're trying to help people to sort of humanize kind of what happens, or make it real, because we talk about violence. Sometimes you can look at the data, you can look at the stats, but you can sort of lose the essence of how it impacts people. So I'm just curious, how did that impact you in the moment, in the coming weeks? What was that like?
Well, in the moment, confused, wasn't really aware of the attack that was going to happen, but until it did, and then obviously adrenaline and fear kicked in, and afterwards, still confused, and also just trying to kind of come down from it, because I think I was also traumatized in a way, to the point where I was kind of fearful to have people behind me at all, kind of. So
You mean after that?
Yeah, after that. So I found myself looking over my shoulder a lot more, and probably didn't really want to trust anyone, kind of.
So was that incident, was it unprovoked?
When I was stabbed, I believe, is when I was walking about a block away from Inner City Youth Alive on Aberdeen and Aikens. Yeah, and two guys came up from behind and got me in the back there.
Mm-hmm.
And was just walking pretty much to my friend's house. That was like about a block away from when it happened.
Yeah. So then I'm just trying to think about our journey in working together and in friendship as well. Um, that's not the only incident. Not that we want to recount all the incidents, but you had a lot of, like, I can just remember you talking about your house kind of being the target sometimes of violent attacks. Say something about that. Am I remembering these things
Mm-hmm.
correctly?
Yeah, my house was kind of the hangout place for a lot of my friends, so my house was well known in the neighborhood to have, yeah, just a lot of activity in general, and so that attracted a lot of gang members. Yeah, some of it was shooting, some of it was coming with guns, some of it was even cops, SWAT team coming in and raiding the house. It was, yeah, a mixture of both, kind
Mm-hmm.
of, and it was,
Didn't you have a point blank gun in your face at one time?
yeah, that was also when I was 15. And yeah, thankfully he didn't shoot me, and I was able to get out of the way. And yeah, that definitely was a scary moment.
So you just have an amazing ability to talk about it in a kind of a low key
No.
sort of way. Um, I'm curious though. We've done kind of a journey of trauma, and like we've walked with you through some of those moments, and kind of help our listeners understand, like when you're on the receiving end of that, how does it affect the way you walk through the community? How does it affect how you think about life? How does it affect maybe your just your general mental health?
Yeah, the effects it had on me, unfortunately, it was I wasn't sleeping a lot, high anxiety all the time, frequent panic attacks, definitely. Um, yeah, just depression. Felt like I couldn't go out anywhere. Felt like I couldn't even relax in my own house because it was obviously targeted also. And not only that, because even police coming to my house, it made me feel like there was very little help that I can get other than, the friends that I had.
Yeah, and in terms of the friends that you had at that point, like the guys that were sort of going around in the gang with you, like, well, how did they offer support, or how did that work?
Unfortunately, they offered just man it up and, we'll deal with it when it comes head on. And, um, the obvious thing is, that they're not always going to be there. And yeah, they mix.
Sorry, they're offering to basically deal with the issue, as in retaliate, or
Mm-hmm. When the moment happens, but oops, sorry, when that happens, and but yeah, they weren't always there, and so but they would just always say just man up or whatever, and don't be scared, and kind of deal with it, kind of,
yeah,
which was hard because yeah.
it's kind of sounds like an impossible assignment to just man up and take it. What is your observation of some of your friends that you used to kind of be around? How they're manning up and taking? How are they doing? A lot of the guys that you were kind of chumming around with at that time. How are they doing?
Um, yeah, some of the guys definitely look like they dealt with it definitely a lot better, but I think you could see that they're also dealing with a lot of traumas and stuff like that too. Always feeling the need to have a weapon, and yeah, always needing to walk in groups, kind of when we went out and stuff.
So kind of a like a permanent state of hypervigilance. This is kind of a jittery,
Mm-hmm.
on guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So helping people to sort of empathize with what that's like. Um, I noticed that when there's a violent crime, people kind of read over it, and then they say, "What were the circumstances?" They might say, like now somebody who's just looking in on things might say, "Oh, that was gang related. Okay, nothing to do with me. Nothing. I'm not in a gang. I don't have to be worried about it." So people's empathy is often tied to just their own. They just don't want to be on the receiving end of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if you could help um, viewers understand, like, a little bit of how that flows then in the community, like when there's that violent incident, like how long do the repercussions last? Like how long does it kind of stretch out?
Hmm. It can stretch out pretty long, depending on, yeah. the incident that happened, if somebody was murdered or a person was jumped, kind of thing. You'll find usually a block is kind of together in a sense. Um, yeah, they kind of feel it when somebody else on the block got like hurt and stuff like that, and yeah, it can definitely leave a mark. But there's this cases where that's maybe not even the case, and it's kind of looked the other way, kind of thing, and it's like whatever that happened to some stranger or whatever.
Yeah, so people kind of just there's enough trauma and they kind of become numb to it, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, again, when you think about kind of the role, maybe if you can get in a little helicopter and do a look kind of down on it all, what does the role of violence play in a gang? Like, how is it used?
It's one of the main key components to how to run a gang. You got to use force and enforcers to make everything operate, make people listen to what you're saying. And I had a friend that was in IP, and he would go and sell, and he would come back with black eyes and everything. And we'd ask, what's wrong? What happened to you? You get jumped? And he would tell us, no, it's his own higher ups that did that to him because he fell asleep selling and stuff like that. And there was always, some sort of repercussion if he did something wrong, if he lost something, if he got locked
So he
up.
was supposed to be selling drugs, and he just kind of fell asleep, and that there was a consequence for that.
Yeah, they beat him for it.
And so, what message are they trying to send him?
Yeah, that he has to be working and not sleeping. And if you even said no to going for a walk somewhere, they would also beat you for that too, because then you're being scared and you're not following to what they're saying. A lot of what gangs want is compliance, and whenever they need you or need you to do something, you got to do it right there and then. If not, then you get beats or whatever they call it. And so,
yeah, like no hesitation.
no, they don't care. Even though they call you bro and everything, they will definitely beat you up just for that.
Yeah. So then, I'm just trying to think too. Then how that flows in the community. Where, so if you're 15 or 16 and you're involved in gangs, the younger kids up and coming, how are they seeing that? Are they drawn to it out of does the fear keep them away, or does the power of it? Like, how does it all work? How do they get drawn in then?
A lot of the recruiting can sometimes happen through just family members seeing their older brothers do it, and they only see the cool stuff, like the clothes, the shoes, the money, the partying and stuff like that. That's one part of it. The other part is in when they're already incarcerated in like juvenile places. That's where a lot of older guys would go probably, and they recruit them there inside their jail there at the YMC or whatever. And so, yeah.
So at NYC,
That's it.
not the YMCA.
Yeah.
That's other stuff. But anyhow, okay. So NYC, Manitoba Youth Center. So then it's kind of the shiny things is what sort of like maybe the money, the cars, the jewelry, the whatever draws youth in. But what happens like once they get in? How do they get in?
A lot of the time is they get introduced in, and yeah, they learn sometimes the hard way that you have to get initiation, which is also just getting beaten up by your friends in
Getting
the big
jumped
circle.
in.
Yeah.
Talk about that for our listeners who don't even understand that.
Yeah,
Getting jumped in. What's that about?
It's paying a price. It's getting beaten up by the members of the gang, and sometimes you're not even allowed to fight back, defend yourself. You just have to take the beats to show that you're tough enough to be a part of the gang. And yeah, a lot of times it's usually somewhere around 7 people on one, and they put you in a circle, and yeah, you can't fight back. You just got to take it.
So you're 12, and that's your first entry into it. I'm trying to picture what message that sends that kid. You talked about they want compliance, so I guess that kid is getting the message that there's consequences for not, I guess, pulling your weight maybe, And so then, what is some of those younger those kids that then get jumped in, say 12, 13? What's kind of their first sort of things that they're going to be having to do? Like, what are they going to have to do to sort of do work?
A lot of the times it's running for them, which is selling drugs. They would get told to go to this address, and a lot of the times, yeah, that's what they start off with. Then it goes to petty theft, breaking into cars, stealing stuff inside there, to even carjacking and stuff like that. And it just keeps getting worse as they progress.
And and so then I've heard one of the dynamics in gangs is that everybody kind of has dirt on each other, which is one of the ways that keeps people sort of locked in, where, maybe people know what you've done and you know what they've done. And so it kind of, how do they kind of keep all of this secret? How do they keep it all under wraps? How does that work?
The biggest piece is fear. I know that. Fear, and also just could label you a snitch, which would also get you into some big trouble with not even just the gang, but with even outside people from the gang and stuff. So, yeah, a lot of that spreading rumors, whether they're true or not, is one of the biggest ways that they can also keep everything, on the down low.
Like spreading rumors about somebody who's maybe a snitch, or kind of getting a reputation for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, then talk a little bit about what gangs are, what are they kind of dealing in. Talk about, like, what role does drugs have to do in the gang? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's a big part of it. It's where all the income comes from. It's where all the money. It builds ties with even other gangs, and it can get so big that there's so much of the hierarchy that it is so difficult. But a lot of the time, you'll find that the drugs are the biggest key to the gangs, because they need that, but also they use even the drugs that they get, and they trade it off even for other stuff, not just money and stuff like that. So it even controls people, the ones that are hooked on it, to get them to do things for them.
So, kind of back to the theme of violence. So drugs are kind of that's the thing they're selling. I'm curious, what role do you think the drugs, because what my observation is that when people, so you have your customer base is essentially a group of addicts, and they're going to do whatever they have to get rid of their sort of dope sick feeling. So talk about what role those addictions then, as gangs are dealing in drugs. What are those addictions that are out, that are being created? You could say maybe what role does that play in the violence, addiction and violence?
Yeah, addiction and violence, they seem very common with each other. For a guy that's strung out, that needs his fix because he gets really sick if he doesn't have it, will definitely go and steal and break an entry into places. And I think even my brother would also go to like 7-Eleven and steal a bunch of like those sub sandwiches and stuff and go trade it in for meth because it's so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And so it even causes petty theft too, and causes places like 7-Eleven in a neighborhood to close down because there's so much of it.
Yeah, we just recently had that closed down on Salter. So
Mm-hmm.
so then the drug dealing, that's sort of playing into the addiction. It's generating more violence, I guess, and the gangs themselves are kind of holding everybody in their place through threat of violence. When you think like in a wider sense, then you know, grandmas, grandpas, families in the community, kind of how does that play out in, like, if you think about our friends in the community, how that environment that's been created, how that works then, or how it must feel.
Yeah. So a lot of even what I experienced as a kid was a violence through my father. Yeah, being an addict, even through my mother, verbally in many different ways, and it becomes in your head as a kid that this is normal, and this probably happens in everyone's house. And unfortunately, in the North End, and a lot of my friends, that was the case. so we all could relate with each other that we were getting it from our parents, and which made us bitter and felt hurt. So it made it okay for us to go hurt other people and to, let out our anger, to the ones that we actually couldn't hurt. And yeah, I feel like it definitely is generational, because I can't say exactly what happened to my father when he was growing up, but it didn't sound good either.
So when we think of kind of the roots of this violence, I don't know where this saying came from, but I often quote it, that violence is the sound that pain makes. So it comes from somewhere, somebody's pain, and you're talking about a community where sometimes that violence can be normalized, and we just go, that's how it is, kind of thing. Um, Delving deeper into, like, what is the root of, kind of the deepest root of that pain that people are walking with?
I think identity, for a lot of the First Nations in this neighborhood, it goes way back, and yeah, it's always told to us that, yeah, there is a lot of pain in our culture, a lot of taken away, a lot of genocide, a lot of just taking kids away from their parents. And then you hear about agencies like CFS still doing that kind of thing, and so that pain is like really real from like a really young age, and really so far down too that you hear about it, that it's, yeah, a big piece of history in Canada.
Sometimes hard to remember, or it's difficult to remember that. You talk about your dad, and not even really knowing what he went through, but so it can go back generations where that pain has its roots, and you touch on the history of colonization. Of course, there's just such a deep and dark pain there. Um, um, when you think about kind of where to go from here, or if something becomes normalized, it can become overwhelming, where you're like, how are we going to change the tide here? How are we going to turn the tide? How are we going to make things improve? Like, what are your thoughts on like maybe places you're seeing where there's some signs of hope, maybe some discouragements, or what? Just sort of your insight on where do we go from here, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a hard one to answer. Where does hope begin, really? And a lot of it, even for me, it was this building here. It gave me a different perspective of what a healthy parent looked like. And I guess staying at places like Harvey Rempel's house or something like that, seeing what a functional home looked like, and having a good role model to show you that, this is actually not right. That's what happened to you and what is happening, and kind of giving them, just a different look into life, and saying, this isn't you. This doesn't have to be you. That, you can do more and be more, and be able to have your own family, and not, live the same way that you're living, kind of to have something way better for them.
It's kind of interesting how the North End, there's sort of like an isolation, where it's a context sometimes where things have been normalized, like you've alluded to. What you're describing, though, is sort of this simple invitation. Really, it's like an invitation to, if people could open up their lives more to people from a different lived experience, so that we can sort of learn from each other, and somehow I think there's healing to be had in that. And I know you had a trip. You also spent some time in a family in where was that? Arborg? No,
Fisher Branch.
Fisher Branch. That's it. Say a little bit about how that kind of helped you in your life.
Helped me a lot, actually. It gave me a sense of to moving in this house with a bunch of strangers. This lady named Joan had a really big heart, and loved Christ and wanted to share him, but also wanted to share her home. And, she took another adoption kids, kind of from all ages, from young to old.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up there was good. It was like a farm. So there was horses there, dogs, cats, stuff like that. And yeah, she took me in and gave me time to just kind of figure things out, kind of get a feel for it. And then she kind of started putting in, yeah, structure, kind of like a schedule. Get up like 6 in the morning. They do a Devo. Kind of, she would read us from the Bible and stuff, and then you eat breakfast, and then kind of get ready for school. I wasn't in school then, but she would get me kind of starting on chores a little bit, and so she was starting to give me kind of to what the real life kind of was, in a sense of getting up in the morning, routine, kind of having that, and having rest time also, and yeah, it was really good. She helped me understand a very structured home and what that could look like.
Yeah. Um, I just know when I remember that time when that happened, and to me it was it's just amazing that family willing to open their home up, and I think isolation is a big challenge in our community. Where if you're walking with pain, or if you're caught up in something, there can it seems like people can feel really isolated and, like, kind of stuck. Can you talk about that from your perspective?
Yeah, the isolating feeling can definitely, yeah, it's a lot because I guess because you see everything and nothing's gonna change, right? You kind of feel everything's just gonna be this way. I'm never leaving the North End. I'm practically gonna die here, an addict or a drunk or whatever. And I used to have that mind thought that I was never gonna leave this little community here. Was pretty much gonna live and die here, just yeah, being an addict, living my day to day, doing whatever I wanted, and yeah, it was depressing and didn't seem like that's something I wanted. So
Mm-hmm. Um, any thoughts on how we can be opening more doors from our community, like how we can give more kids in our community opportunities to kind of feel less isolated and sort of see the wider world?
yeah, so some of I could look like many things, like just coming, volunteering, and just sharing even your life story with them, or just hanging out with them. To even for me, when I went into YWAM, somebody yeah, donated a bit of money that I needed to cover my school costs, and that helped me
Mm-hmm.
to be able to yeah, learn about the Lord, but also travel and see new places. And
YWAM opened all kinds of doors for you. Talk a little bit about
oh
how
yeah,
far afield you went.
oh yeah, I went to Fiji. Was the first place I went to in 2016. After that, I went to
Got a
Cuba.
question, Terry.
Yeah,
Okay. So, did you see poverty in Fiji, or what did you see?
I seen a lot of community and a lot of people just being together, people smiling all the time, saying, you know, come to my house for food or whatever, even if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't really know them. So it was so different from our culture here.
Yeah, interesting. We had a number of kids that we took to Mexico, to a third world kind of space where there was a lot of homelessness, and we built houses there. And we asked the kids what kind of poverty they would prefer. What do they, North End
Mm-hmm.
poverty or the poverty in Mexico? And all the kids chose Mexico. And it's because of what you described. They said, although we can see that people are poor, there's a sense of community and a sense of family and togetherness, and oddly a sense of sort of optimism or happiness. I guess
Mm-hmm.
it sounds kind of flaky, but
Yeah.
so then your experience in that trip, what was that like for you? Here's this North End kid. I mean, you you hardly got out of the neighborhood aside from our camp, and there's some
Mm-hmm.
things that you did with us. But this is a what did that feel like to make that trip?
Oh, it was amazing. Scary, but amazing. It definitely opened my eyes to, yeah, how different the world can be. And, where I grew up in this small little community, and how much violence and hate and poverty was, and just seemed like everyone was, yeah, disconnected, to a place where, villages that don't really have a lot of power or anything like that, but they're very happy with what they do have and very good with connecting, and made me feel even somewhat of a celebrity in some ways, because I guess they don't see a lot of First Nations out there. So they're always happy to see a First Nation and ask a bunch of questions and stuff. So yeah, it was amazing.
So, can you Do you recall a moment where you said, like, where it was kind of like this, okay, like where the world kind of opened up for you and you said, I see some possibilities. Is there a moment, or was it sort of a dragged out thing, or was a memory of an occasion? Curious.
It would have been, yeah, maybe Gem Lake would have been, because I was still really struggling with my identity and who I was and what I really wanted.
So for our listeners, Gem Lake is a camp that we have up north, and right now we're waiting with bated breath. There's a fire lingering right around it, but so talk about Gem Lake and how that kind of opened up your view for what's possible.
Yeah, there's where I found community. There's where I found where I could be myself. I didn't have to have like this hard, city persona kind of thing. Like I needed to be on guard all the time. I got to know, different people my age were wanting to know Christ, and I was wanting to know. It built, very good friendships with these people, and was able to be mentored even by Gord or Matt. And there is where I thought, I can change now. Like I feel like this is the kind of feeling I want to feel all the time. Kind of, I want to feel relaxed. I want to feel I can be myself. I want to feel like I can, worship God, and like there are worship times there, and to even share God even with the campers there at the time when I was a counselor.
Yeah. Well, it's always amazing to get your perspective, Terry. We've come to deeply respect what you offer in our community, and your sage wisdom, and from what you know and what you've lived through. It's unbelievable. I often find it amazing to see the growth in your life, and we're so proud of the progress you've made. And for Marissa and you and your family, we wish you guys all the best. And and thanks for your sort of street level sort of insight on the topic. And so thank you for showing up here today, Terry.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Dangerous Ideas for Social Change.